just happened? Hang on a second, sorry. So everyone should be looking at the slideshow now, I hope. Is it working, Tim?
Oh, no.
Okay,
For some
how about
reason,
now?
oh, wait.
Is it working now? Okay, great.
Yes, take it
All
away.
right. Great, sounds good. My name is Kurt Svensson, and I work at the Aging and Disability Resource Center of Dane County. I'm here today to talk a little bit about the ADRC and what we do, and specifically related to working with younger adults with disabilities as they transition from youth to adulthood. There are ADRCs throughout the entire state of Wisconsin. I work at the one in Dane County. This presentation is geared a little bit more towards how our ADRC operates. Each ADRC throughout the state may work in transition in slightly different ways, just in terms of getting connected with transition age students and things like that. But in terms of the programs and the work that we do, it should be consistent throughout the state in terms of the key features of how ADRCs work in general. So I'll try to point out if there's points that only apply to our ADRC, just so people are aware. And in Dane County, the ADRC where I work, we specifically work with only Dane County. In other areas of the state, it may work a little bit differently depending on the population of the area and the county. Sometimes ADRCs only work with one county, and there are maybe times where one ADRC may work with a few different counties. But regardless, there are ADRCs in your area. So yeah, I encourage reaching out whenever you're interested to connect. Let's see here, sorry. So in terms of high school transition services, ADRCs were set up with the intent to help to increase access to services. So we're a single entry point and a place to start for information about options. We do a lot of different services and offer a lot of different things. A big part of what we do is called information and assistance. Trying to be really good listeners, try to identify where people may be needing a little bit of help and support. And we're here to let people know about their options so they can decide what may work the best for their needs moving forward. We work with a lot of different populations. We work with older adults, we work with people with physical disabilities, and we work with people with developmental disabilities. Those are our main target groups. In Dane County, and this may be a little bit different throughout the state, I'm not quite sure, but when the ADRC in Dane County was set up, there was a group of stakeholders that came together that thought it would be important to have a smaller group of staff at our ADRC that specializes in working with youth in transition. So specifically at the ADRC, we do have of Dane County, we have about 5 or 6 staff that specialize in working with youth as they transition to adulthood. Work through that process to help people learn about options and to learn about what programs that they may qualify for. We partner with a lot of different people in the community to get connected with folks. Sometimes we get referrals directly from individuals. Sometimes maybe parents helping their loved ones to connect with us. And we also do, in Dane County, have a very good referral process set up with all the different area high schools, and also with people that are supported in the children's long-term support waiver, where if they have a case manager in those systems, they assist people to get connected with us and get referred to start learning about options. In Dane County, this is specific to Dane County, we do have bilingual staff available to assist people as well. We have 2 people on our high school transition team that are bilingual staff. One is a bilingual Spanish speaking staff, and the other one is a bilingual Hmong speaking staff. And we do have access to additional translation services for other languages, but in terms of staff that are fluent in other languages, that's what we have on staff in ADRC. Other ADRCs may have a little bit of a different kind of staff population there, but for us, we do have those bilingual positions available. In terms of assistance and when we can become involved and to begin talking with people about options is at age 17 and a half. So that's the earliest to get connected with the ADRC to learn about options. So if you or a loved one or someone you know is a younger adult with a developmental disability or a physical disability that is interested to learn about options, that would be a great time to get connected with us to start that planning process. And you've heard me mention a few times physical disabilities and developmental disabilities. People with loan support needs related to mental health wouldn't be a target group for the ADRC, but there's often times that we're working with people that have co-occurring support needs, perhaps related to physical or developmental disabilities and mental health. But mental health alone, or like learning disabilities or behavioral diagnoses like ADHD, not that I'm minimizing needs in those areas, but that wouldn't meet the target group for the ADRC. So sometimes we're contacted by folks and we can talk about information about options, but just know that those wouldn't be specific target groups for the ADRC or the programs that we screen for. I've already talked about some of this. In terms of our referral process, this kind of highlights how we get those referrals that I mentioned. The ADRC of Dane County, we have that referral process that I was referring to, and there's a staff at our ADRC, and this may differ from county to county, but in Dane County, there is a staff person that assists to manage our referral line. We have a phone number that people can call. It's a specific hotline to call for transition related referrals. And we do have an email address that is specific to transition related referrals. So oftentimes those referrals don't go through our general phone number. So if you live in Dane County, and there's some information at the end of the presentation here with that contact information. So I'll share that at the end. But that would be the easiest way to get connected with Dane County. Other ADRCs may work a little bit differently. In Dane County, we also have our general phone line that where we offer information for everyone. And that phone line never goes to voicemail during our regular business hours. So sometimes, people may contact us through our regular, phone line, or maybe reach out to our general email address, or even stop in the ADRC, which is a possibility under normal circumstances, not right now due to the pandemic. But yeah, if people reach out to us in other ways, we just help them to connect to our transition team. So a big part of what we do is talking about options. So after a person gets connected with us in some format, generally what we are doing, and mostly what people are requesting, would be for us to see if they or their loved ones have enough care needs to qualify for the state's long-term care programs for people with physical disabilities and or developmental disabilities. So what we do in Dane County when that referral comes in, my supervisor, Bill, helps to work with the family or whoever assisted to make that referral to gather medical documentation about a person's different diagnoses. And after he has that, he helps to assign that referral to one of our information staff. So it was mentioned at the beginning of the call that I'm one of our lead staff, but like I said, there's a number of us that specialize in doing this type of work. So what Bill would do would be to assign a case to us to get involved. And what we do is get in touch to schedule a time to meet. Under normal circumstances, these meetings would occur in person, wherever a person is most comfortable meeting. Generally, what we prefer is to meet with people in their home environment and people usually find that very convenient. So we usually offer home visits to provide this information and to work through and help a person to evaluate their options. Right now, due to the pandemic, those in-person meetings, just to note, aren't occurring in Dane County. It's possible, I don't know for sure. Each ADRC operates a little bit differently. So there may be some, if people are located in other areas of the state, I don't know. It's possible that some may be doing in-person visits in some capacity, but in Dane County, we are not. So I was talking with Tim before the meeting started here. We are still operating in full capacity and assisting with everything as we normally would during the pandemic here. So if people are interested to get connected, don't hesitate to reach out. We're still able to assist with everything as we normally would. We're just doing it virtually. So many of the meetings and visits that we're having now would be either over the phone or in other preferred contact methods like Zoom, like this. And actually, related to our high school transition cases, a lot of people are used to using Zoom, and especially right now with a lot of the schools being virtual as well. Folks just seem to be comfortable using this format, and we found that it works really well to connect with folks. So at least me personally, a lot of the meetings that I've been having with folks have been virtual over Zoom. So this is a temporary exception to our normal required in-person meeting, but that's just what's happening right now due to the pandemic. So anyway, but we would still get in touch to schedule that meeting. And what we'd like to do is to learn about a person's goals and what they're hoping to accomplish in the future, and to have a discussion. And if a person was wanting to be screened for programs that the state has to assist people to accomplish maybe different independent living goals that they may have, or perhaps goals to work in the community, to get around in the community, whatever it may be, if they have care needs in those areas related to their physical or developmental disability, and if they're wanting to learn about some options for programs to offer support in those areas, what we do is we assist to complete what's called a long-term care functional screen, which is a statewide assessment tool to determine if people have enough care needs to qualify for these programs. Basically that process is gathering that medical documentation about what a person's different diagnoses may be, and then having a conversation with the person and perhaps their family or whoever they would want involved in that meeting to learn about the different care needs that they may have, and what their day looks like. We like to learn kind of what people are able to do independently and the different areas where people may be needing help and support. And that help and support may look differently depending on a person's abilities and what they're needing help with. Sometimes it may be assistance with physically completing tasks. Other times it may be things as subtle as reminders or cues. But we like to learn about kind of a person's full day, things like bathing and dressing, taking medications, making meals, how people get around in the community, a person's ability to evaluate and make decisions, perhaps a person's ability to work in the community and what supports are needed. So we have a conversation about those sorts of things, and sometimes it isn't a one-time meeting. There's oftentimes also that we're making collateral contacts with other important contacts on a person's team if people aren't able to be involved in the meeting. So sometimes talking with the school or service providers that may be involved, parents, whoever that might be helpful to include in those conversations, as long as the person's on board with us having those conversations. That's another important thing to mention, is that all of the work that we do with folks is confidential, without a written or release to be able to kind of communicate with folks. Right now in the pandemic, again, another exception is that we are able to work off people's verbal authorization as well, but in normal circumstances it's best practice to have those signatures on file.
So Kurt, this is
yeah.
Tim. Can I just ask a couple of clarifying type questions, because I know there's some people that may not be familiar with the whole process.
Yep.
So I'm sitting here thinking as a parent, so 17 and a half, let's say I'm able to hold off till then. I call the ADRC and say I have a 17 and a half year old. from my understanding is then your first step is you're going to review school and medical records
That's what we do in Dane County.
in Dane County. What sort of things
ADRC
what are you looking for in those school and medical records? Is there something that parents and families should have prepared in advance to help with that part of the process in Dane County? Or how do you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you need
Yeah.
records, should I have them ready for you?
Not necessarily, no. Oftentimes we are getting records directly from providers. So and again, this is just specific to Dane, but what the way that our transition referral process is set up is that the supervisor at the ADRC that helps to supervise that transition team collects that documentation in advance of assigning it to one of our information staff. But in terms of documentation, when we're doing these assessments, for people to qualify for services for people that may have a developmental disability, what's really important is for us to receive doctor-confirmed diagnoses about those health conditions. Parents don't necessarily need to provide us those records. Oftentimes we're getting medical releases and getting them from medical service providers. But having that doctor confirmed diagnoses is really important because that's needed to score needs related to having a developmental disability on the assessments that we do. So school records alone for that, we can't work off school records alone. So there may be times where we may meet individuals that maybe are receiving special education under the criteria for perhaps autism, and they meet the criteria for educational autism, but that alone is not enough for us to score needs on these assessments related to autism. We also need medical confirmation of that diagnosis. Yeah, I mean, having being connected with healthcare providers and having those needs documented is important, I would say, Tim.
And I know another thing that parents often ask is, we have some kiddos that got their medical diagnosis of autism at 3 or 4 years old. Do they need to have a additional meeting with the doctor within a certain amount of time for the ADRC? Like, should they be thinking about updating at 15, 16 years old, seeing a doctor and updating that?
I think that, my response to that is it's going to be up to the parent to determine if they feel that would be helpful or not. With the ADRC and the assessments that we do, we work off the most current medical documentation that we have. So if a person's prior, medical documentation and that they had, and perhaps like a neuropsychological evaluation, or it might be if that concluded an autism diagnosis, and if there hasn't been any change with a medical determination about that, that's what we're going to work off of. Developmental disabilities in nature shouldn't change. It's from birth.
Very, very, very rarely.
Yep.
Especially with our kiddos that are looking at ADRC, is generally, they're stable to some extent.
Yeah, but you never know. Sometimes there's changes. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Last question, then I promise I'm going to let you get back to your presentation. I know some of our families are familiar with the functional screen, the children's functional screen. If they had received benefits and they went through the children's functional screen, do they need to redo the long-term care functional screen?
100%. Great question, Tim. Thanks for bringing that up. And I do really enjoy this Q&A as well. So if other people do have questions that they want to ask, I really would like to do that as well. I enjoy that quite a bit, but good question, Tim. So the Children's Long-Term Support Screen, or CLTS screen, as some folks refer to it as, is the eligibility for the Children's Service System. So what we do at the ADRC is we are kind of the gatekeeper to confirm eligibility for adult services. And the eligibility criteria is different for children's services and adult services. So if a person is on CLTS, it is important to get connected with us, and if they're interested to receive services as an adult, because we'll need to reconfirm eligibility for adult services. And if a person qualifies functionally and financially for those services, the state likes people to make that transition from children's services to adult services as close to age 18 as possible. So making that referral at 17 and a half is a great time to get that process started and that ball rolling.
Thanks.
So yeah, that functional screen that we were talking about, that adult functional screen is what we determine if people have enough care needs to qualify for services. And it's generally for people that have across the board need for assistance with multiple tasks of daily living. So that's what it means to functionally qualify for those long-term care programs. In addition to passing that care assessment, people also need to be financially eligible for Medicaid. So that's kind of another piece in that process. And there's a lot of different forms of Medicaid. Sometimes we meet folks that are on Katie Beckett Medicaid or foster care MA or Badger Care or SSI, MAP. There's a lot of different types of Medicaid, but being financially eligible for Medicaid is also essential because it's the only type of insurance that can help to pay for these programs. These are programs that would have otherwise used Medicaid funds to help to provide for care in more institutional settings, but they divert the funds to be used to help a person to live and work in the community. So that financial eligibility is really important. And if a person passes that functional screen and if they're on Medicaid, then what we do is we talk about their enrollment options. In Dane County specifically, there are 3 long-term care programs for people that are fully eligible for services. There's a program called Family Care, a program called Partnership, and a program called Iris. And there's some big differences between those 3 program options. I wasn't planning at least to get into the differences between those programs because I could probably talk for about an hour and a half about how those programs work. But they both function very differently. And part of our role at the ADRC is to help people to learn about the key differences between those programs so a person could decide what program would best meet their needs if they qualify. And that's what we call enrollment counseling. In other areas of the state, it's possible that some of those programs might be different. So Family Care and Iris should be throughout the entire state of Wisconsin, but there's only certain counties in Wisconsin that have in addition, have the partnership program that we have here in Dane. So if you were working in a different area of the state, that's something that you could explore with your own local ADRC.
Is there any like just high level really quick, and I know that's a silly question, really quick distinction between the different programs, just so families know it, because there's not, as children, you become part of the Children's Long-Term Support Program. You get a case manager, you access a certain set of services, you have to work through that case manager. There's not a lot of flexibility in that.
No, there's not a choice at all. In
right.
You
so now families are sitting there going, oh, what do you mean? There's different options? What? Can you just explain what those options are a little bit?
There's different options, and that's a great thing. And I'll just kind of speak broadly, and this is really like the quick cliff notes on this sort of thing. Each of the programs are designed to meet a person's needs. Hopefully, that's the goal. But each program is going to do it a little bit differently. And just to really dial things back, that Family Care and Partnership program that I was referring to earlier functions in a managed care model of services. So basically, there would be a care team if a person was enrolling that would get to know the person and their family and their support needs, and would help a person to develop a service plan based on what they were needing assistance with and who might make sense to assist with those different things. But it would be a team, a managed care team that would be helping through that assessment process and authorization process. at minimum on a person's care team, there's always a care manager, which is just a fancy name for a case manager, like maybe a social worker would be another kind of term that would resonate. And then also a registered nurse whose role is to function kind of like a medical case manager is a good way to kind of think about things. In the partnership program, there's some additional things as well, but just to kind of speak broadly about those programs, there's that team that would be partnering with you to assess need and then provide services. And oftentimes in managed care, that may be through like an agency that organization would contract with to provide services. So that managed care organization's kind of like a funding source is a good way to kind of think about it and to help you to develop a plan and to provide services. And they're going to complete some paperwork as well to help kind of make sure folks are getting paid for those services that they're providing. The IRIS program, which it functions differently. So IRIS is a completely self-directed program. That care team that I was talking about does not exist in the IRIS program. A person would be self-directing an individualized budget in the IRIS program, and everyone receives a consultant whose role is to partner with the person and perhaps their family or decision maker or whoever it might be, to help a person to develop a plan to receive care. Only their role is a little bit different. They're not a case manager. Their role is really to help you to be in charge, not to be in charge for you. But in IRIS, you would be self-directing your services and not working through that managed care team. And it's an individualized budget and service plan. So, yeah. Is that helpful?
Yeah, and my understanding is that you'll help lay out the options for the family, but it's the family that makes the choice.
Correct. Yeah.
Of which family care, of which model of care they want to go with. And then there's different agencies that could assist in, my understanding is, in family care or IRIS. And again, you'll present the options, but it's up to the family to make those choices.
100%. That is correct. So yeah, we are unbiased at ADRCs, and our job is to make sure that people have the information that they need to make the choices that they feel would work best. So yeah, I've been talking about, at least in Dane County, the Family Care Partnership IRIS programs for people that fully qualify for services. But Tim's right. There are multiple organizations that do each of those programs as well, and it can be complicated to work through things. So yeah, we're really there helping to work with people through each step of the process. Usually at least personally, when I'm working with somebody that fully qualifies for all the programs, I usually like to help a person to help give them the tools to decide which program may work the best for their needs first. And then after they've made that determination, then it's figuring out what organization they want to help them in that program. There's actually 2 managed care organizations that do family care in Dane County, 2 that do partnership in Dane County, and 4 consultant agencies that do IRIS. So yeah, it's a little bit of a process, but yeah, that's something that we help a person to work through and to get the information that they need to make their choice. So.
And I know the answer to this, but I want you to state it out loud for the record. Once you make a choice, you're stuck.
No, absolutely not.
Oh man, I was informed wrong.
No, absolutely not. And that's something that I think a lot of people find a lot of comfort in. So I think it's human nature. I mean, people obviously have a goal to get things right, when they make a choice, and hopefully things work out. But if people ever have a change of mind about a program or organization that they've selected for their long-term care program, if they ever have a change of mind, they could switch things up at any time. So at the ADRC, we do all of the initial eligibility for these programs. We help people to enroll in whatever programs they may qualify and choose to enroll in. But we also assist with the disenrollments and any sort of re-enrollment. So if anyone ever was wanting to make a change, they just reach back out to their local ADRC to learn about options. So yeah, that's something.
Yeah, we do have a question.
And there's no open enrollment, sometimes for some, like open enrollment periods and things like that. So like for like Part D plans, like this doesn't apply to you. Well, it doesn't necessarily apply to this conversation, but like Medicare prescription drug plans, people might be aware that there's specific times of the year where people can make changes. That's not the case for these programs that I've been talking about. People could request a change at any time.
And just a quick question, because I want to make sure I answer a question in the chat correctly. Do you have any idea if you could put out the children's long-term support model that we have in Wisconsin, and then the options that come at long-term support, is there one that is more like what families experience with children's long-term support? Yeah, that was my response too when I read the question.
I don't work in the children's service system, and I've never been a CLTS case manager, so it's hard for me to draw comparisons there. Personally, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be evasive or anything like that.
The question is in the chat, and so I will follow up with that question. So I just wanted to ask your opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, they work differently, I guess is the correct answer for sure. Yeah, it's a whole different system and different eligibility as well. And I think I talked about that earlier.
Thanks.
Yeah, times where people qualify for children's services but may not for adult services. That does happen sometimes as well. So yeah, and so there are times, I guess I'll just kind of keep talking about eligibility there. There is times where we get through that assessment process and people may fully qualify for services. And again, then we'll work with people to learn about those options. There are times also where people may qualify for some, but not all of the programs. Again, we'll help people to learn about their options there. And there's times where maybe people don't qualify for any of them. And there, the ADRCs, so people aren't out of luck there in terms of information. We're still there to help people to link with resources and to learn about other things that may be out there and available and things to explore, but perhaps not the adult service programs that they would qualify, that they didn't qualify for. And along those lines about not qualifying as well, just to mention quickly, if a person did get to the end of that assessment process and if they didn't qualify for services, people are always notified about that. Personally, I always like to have a conversation first, but we do send out formal written notification about the screen results and a person's appeal rights. So people do have the right to appeal any sort of service denial or anything like that. And there's different avenues to pursue that. But for people that don't qualify for the programs that I was referring to, we can still help to talk about other general community resources that may be of interest as well. So.
See, and I think that's really important, Kurt, because I know a lot of people only think of the ADRC as, oh, well, my child has long-term care. My child has been on the waiver. My child receives SSI. So of course I need to go to the ADRC. But there's some families that hasn't been their experience. But I still think there are resources at the ADRC that can help as their child is transitioning into the adult world, the disability adult world.
Certainly, yeah, 100%. So again, we're kind of the experts to connect people with the experts sometimes. So if anyone's ever on the fence, I would just encourage you to reach out. So, and we'll try to link you and talk about whatever options are available and what might make sense. One thing to mention as well, earlier when I was talking through target groups, and Tim, what you were mentioning there just kind of had to come to mind for me, is we at the ADRC, and I don't think this was earlier in the presentation, but we also have a team of disability benefits specialists on staff at the ADRC, and they should be, again, throughout the entire state of Wisconsin. In the ADRC, we have 4 in Dane that specialize in working with people under the age of 60 with applying for benefits, disability benefits as well, or maybe working through different benefit denials. So what I've been talking about previously is all the work that our information staff do at the ADRC, but we also do have some benefit specialists that can sometimes help people through the process of perhaps like applying for SSI benefits. That can be a really confusing process. And we do have some folks that can assist with that, and there's no cost for that at all, for that help. And they can also assist to appeal any sort of benefit denials, like if somebody applies for SSI or SSDI, and if they're denied, our benefit specialists can assist with the first stage of appeal or reconsideration. And they work with people of beyond the target groups that I was referring to earlier. So people that maybe if somebody has loan support needs related to mental health, that still would be an option for our benefits specialists to help out with that sort of thing if they were needing assistance applying for Social Security disability. So.
Kirk, this is Nancy Alar. I have a question about, I had to step away for a few minutes. Maybe you may have already covered this, but we help support a middle-aged man who's 51, who has an autism spectrum diagnosis, but he works full-time and makes something over probably around $14 an hour. So he has some eligibility problems because he makes a fair amount of money, you know, just a little bit over the poverty line. And he lives independently, but he's vulnerable and has a certain level of needs. Like he's already been scammed on the internet. He isn't aware of his own medical needs. And so he didn't know when he was getting diabetes and all this sort of stuff. And he's kind of assembled an informal support team, but we're all getting older.
Right.
And he really needs some kind of assistance. Would you recommend that he apply and go through the functional screening? Because we actually took him to the ADRC probably about 7 years ago, and they seem to discourage us even trying.
Okay. Good question. So each person's situation is a little bit different. So if you're finding that he's needing help and support and would like to learn about options, yeah, I would encourage him to. Is he his own decision maker?
Yes, he's his own decision maker. He does not drive, which is one of his major problems because, you know, it's hard to get to the grocery store and stuff like that.
Yeah. So all of our services are voluntary. So, kind of my thought there, Nancy, would be is if he was interested to learn about options, would be to encourage him to get in touch with us. But we're also there to do to do brainstorming with family members or other folks as well. So, there may be times where we're talking with a family member and then maybe, circling and getting connected with the person as well. When a person's their own decision maker, we always like to involve the person in that conversation and those options meetings as much as possible. But there's a lot of times where we're having, kind of pre-planning conversations with family members. Things can be different at different points in a person's life as well. So you mentioned diabetes there, and, again, I'm just kind of thinking and talking here, like sometimes as a person ages, if their health conditions become more complicated, and if you mentioned autism spectrum, if his developmental disabilities like impacting, and all of a sudden, if there's a big change with diabetes, and if he's having problems managing his medications or his insulin or blood sugar checks, if he has those, that certainly would be worth having a conversation. And then also, we're there to talk with people about publicly funded programs and also general community resources. So I don't know if he's on Medicaid or not. Again, that
he is on no public assistance at this point.
Yeah.
Like I said, he just has an informal team of helpers who help him, and he does most of his own purchasing and food preparation. And so I'm familiar with the functional screening exam because my son goes through it. And I think that it would be very difficult for him to file, to qualify for services, except he's in this sort of same boat that a lot of people on the autism spectrum is. They come close, but whenever anything changes, their life falls apart. And that will be he has no family in the area at all. It's all just friends that have just kind of stepped forward to help him. But there must be other people in this boat who don't have family, who don't have friends. And I'm just kind of asking on all of their behalf, like, what do you do in that situation? He's worked in the same job for almost 30 years, actually, and has a good track record there, but they don't support his need Like when someone tries to trick him out of his money, the people that are at his work don't help him. Most of his help has come through volunteers from the Autism Society who've gotten to know him. And it's just kind of the way it's worked out. But like I mentioned, we're all getting older, and it's just kind of a catch as catch can thing. And we're wondering what kind of resources we could connect him with.
Yeah, I mean, again, Nancy, I mean, it would be having that conversation about what needs he has and in what areas, and then trying to explore what's out there and available. You mentioned transportation, so there may be times where people may not qualify for the publicly funded programs that we've been talking about, but maybe we can talk about general transportation resources in the community for people with disabilities, or you mentioned family. I mean, there's a lot of power and to networking with other family and friends and people in the community. What you're describing, that person's not alone. There's other people out there that have similar needs, and there are parent groups that come together to do some creative support planning as well for people that fall kind of outside of the eligibility criteria for these programs. One of the reasons why I was wondering about Medicaid as well is that, you heard me talking earlier about having kind of across the board need for assistance with multiple tasks of daily living. For people that have a documented developmental disability, like autism, for example, there is kind of a lighter level of eligibility as well for services, which is called a non-nursing home level of care for family care, where a person doesn't need quite as many functional limitations related to their disability to qualify. It could be one or two, or it's not as much. But with that level of eligibility, a person still needs to qualify for Medicaid to be able to enroll. But that's a way to kind of get connected with maybe like a case management program. So
yeah, that's really what he needs is case management. And he would not qualify for Medicaid because he works for state government, so he has a really great health plan, which is lucky for him. It's really, really great. But it also is these case management issues, like the whole business with diabetes. He's needed at least 3 or 4 visits, and he's still not really doing his monitoring because he doesn't understand the equipment. And he had the same issue with sleep apnea, all kinds of assistance. He doesn't understand what the doctors tell him. The doctors don't understand what he doesn't understand. He just really needs some minor assistance, but he doesn't qualify for Medicaid.
Does he? Well, and it sounds like a really individual situation here, but again, it doesn't hurt in my mind if he's finding, or if you're finding, or anyone that's connected with him and is a friend, or whatever, if they wanted to brainstorm about options, I would say to get in touch with us. Medicaid is sometimes, is a really complicated thing. And when
I know my son's on Medicaid.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of different forms of Medicaid as well. So, that would be another conversation, just is to see if there may be a different form of Medicaid that he would qualify for. There's a bunch of different types that have different eligibility criteria for income and assets. Some have disability determination, some don't. I mean, it's complicated. So again, it's worth a conversation, I think.
Kurt, I'm going to give you another question where your answer is probably going to be, it depends, but I'm hoping you might be able to give a little more direction to that. The question is, can a young adult remain on their parents' health insurance and also be enrolled in Medicaid?
Yep, 100%.
Okay.
Yep. So usually the way that, and that's very common. We see that all the time. So, a good, question there would be I think that the eligibility for a person to stay on their parents' private health insurance is through age 26. I want to say
Yes.
like
Yes.
that, but I'd refer, the parent to talk with their insurance provider to get confirmation about their own situation. But yes, a person sometimes can be on multiple types of insurance. It could be private insurance, it could be Medicaid, and it could also be Medicare. Sometimes we meet people that are on all three of those. And there's just a billing order for like healthcare. Private insurance would pay first. Medicaid's the payer of last resort, and even somebody's on Medicare, which is different, that is kind of in between those two. But Medicaid is the type of insurance that's really important because that's the only funding source for those long-term care programs I was talking about earlier. But a person could be on multiple types of insurance. Tim, good question. Thanks for asking that.
And thanks. Good question. Thanks to Doug in the audience tonight.
Yep.
And we do have some time. We have some time left. Any other questions can go into the chat, or any other questions if you want to unmute and fight for the mic.
Yeah. Oh, and just, I was thinking there a little bit, jumping back to the private insurance question. That would be something important for families to consider as well, because there sometimes can be different kind of benefits that maybe private insurance could pay for that Medicaid or maybe Medicare can't as well. So there could be inherent benefits to keeping them on your insurance if you're able to. But then again, depending on cost, I mean, there's a lot, people can decide what they feel works best moving forward, but some families find that helpful. So sorry, I just wanted to mention that.
No, because insurance certainly is not one size fit all. You have to look at what is it that your needs are, and which insurance is going to help you get to those, to meet those needs better. And so that's also when you're looking at, do you also have a mental health challenge, and which one may be a little more better on their mental health coverage. And it gets very individualized. Do you have any other things that I interrupted with the questions and that you weren't able to get to, or were you able to get through everything?
Yeah, in terms of my presentation, I mean, this is the last slide here that I had prepared. This is, again, specific to Dane County. So if you were interested to get connected with a Dane County ADRC, this is some information about how to do that. People could get in touch with us over mail. That's our mailing address. Under normal circumstances, our office is open to the public during times other than the pandemic and the health emergency right now. Under normal circumstances, people could also stop in to see us as well. But I have that phone helpline specific to transition listed on here, our fax number and our email address. Also a quick plug for our website that's at the bottom there. There is a variety of really, at least I think, helpful transition planning related resources on our website. It's a little bit newer. I want to say that we developed our transition website about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and it's updated. We have information about the referral process. We've got forms you can download. There's a form that can actually be filled out to refer somebody to get connected with ADRC that you can download on our website. There's a variety of transition planning related resources about like decision making and SSI benefits and financial planning, employment, all education stuff, a variety of information that I think people would find helpful. Also a list of different community organizations that work with people, younger adults with disabilities. And then we also post information about different community events on our website as well. So yeah, something to check out. So.
And we will do our best to get the PowerPoint. You've already said that I can share it, so we'll do our best to get that out to everyone so that you will have that website as well as the contact information on Dane. And in the chat, obviously you can click right from the chat and it'll take you somewhere. You can copy and paste. If you are not from Dane County, I did put in a link about how you can find your own ADRC and connect with them. So that's available in there too.
Great.
Any final questions or comments? If not, I'll turn it back to Melissa to close us out.
I do see a question there. It looks like Cam had a question about.
Oh, thank you.
They need to apply for Medicaid before calling the ADRC. No, definitely not. So, I mean, people, again, we work with people of all different backgrounds and financial situations, and there are a lot of people that we may talk with and provide information to that don't qualify for Medicaid. So definitely not. And there are times where again, depending on a person's situation, the ADRC, we can also help people through that process as well. And we have some tools that can talk through about how to apply for Medicaid, depending on what avenue would make the most sense. So definitely, you don't need to apply for that unless you want to. So if yeah, if your son did qualify for it, and if you were wanting to apply for it before reaching out, yeah, you could certainly feel free to, but it's not a requirement to do that prior to contacting us. And
thanks. And I did also want to point out that we have Felix on the line, and just please check out the chat. He has an ask for suggestions about connecting some of the dots in the adult world. It's very true that the children's world in some way is a very connected world. There's still disconnects. But when you hit the adult world, it really does seem to get a little bit more fragmented. And so that connecting the dots is important. So anybody who would, please feel free to read over what Felix has written, and please feel free to offer him some suggestions. We'll be hanging out here for just a little while. So appreciate that. Can they start the referral process before 17 and a half? And okay, I'm Kurt, I'm gonna answer this one for you, kind of. It depends on the ADRC.
Oh, good.
There are some ADRCs that have done presentations in some of the more rural counties that will sit there and say, hey, we will be glad to talk to you and let you know what our services are and let you know what you can expect, but we cannot do anything about eligibility until that child is 17 and a half.
Yeah,
but you can call and you can talk to us, but we're not going to be able to do anything except provide information. There's other ADRCs who say, please do not call us until 17 and a half. So there's some variability.
Good answer. Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, we always try to be as helpful as possible to anyone that calls us. So we're not gonna, shut the door. If and specifically also to our regular, resource and referral line, that's always unique to Dane, always answered by one of our live information staff. We're always there to help brainstorm with people. And there's often times where we may be talking with people about linking with the children's service system as well, if they call us, in advance of 17 and a half as well. And, that's the nice thing about the ADRC is that, it's kind of the place to start. So, I would say call us and we'll help to try to get you connected with what might make sense and to let you know what steps to maybe consider moving forward. So yeah, well said to Tim.
Thanks. And for those in Dane County, I do know a number of people who work at the ADRC Dane County, and darn it all, they're good folks. So please feel free to give them a call. They will be there to help you out. Melissa, would you like to take us through closing?
All right, I'm going to share my screen.
And while she's sharing her screen, Kurt, thank you so very much for taking your time out of the evening to be with us. I know this is outside of normal working hours, but darn it all, it seems to work well for parents to not have them take time off of work to have
no problem.
Really appreciate it.
No problem. And that's something to mention as well when you're working with ADRC. And again, especially, for Dane, we are able to flex their work time to accommodate families as well. So that's not uncommon. I mean, a lot of my youth and transition meetings happen outside of regular work hours, and that's something we're able to accommodate. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me. I definitely appreciate it.
I promise I'm done, Melissa.
Is it sharing? We're having some technical difficulties over here. Do we look okay?
Nope, you're looking good.
All right. So just to wrap up, there is a survey, and Tim, I know, put it in the chat. If you can go there and link to it that way, and you'll also receive it tomorrow. So if you can just share your thoughts on the presentation with us. We always look to improve. If you have any ideas going forward. All the recorded presentation and the resources tonight. So Kurt's presentation, it will be available on the Southern Regional Center for Children and Youth with Special Healthcare Needs Transition Tuesdays website. Tim can put a link in the chat for you. Also, it will be available on the Beyond 18 program, which is the 18 to 21-year-old program at the DeForest High School. It will also be available there. There's also a scholarship being offered through the Autism Society of South Central Wisconsin. And information will be sent in a follow-up email. It's available to any post-secondary, it's available to be used at any post-secondary program. So you check that out. And then, just as we're closing out here, and there we go. Okay. Take a look again at the upcoming presentations. You can go to that website, the Transition Talk Tuesdays website, and you can register for one or all of the upcoming trainings, and you will get a link in your email with the Zoom information, just like you did today.
And I do just want to remind people that if they've already registered for more than one, then you are registered. And we'll send you out a reminder before the next programs begin, but you do not have to re-register. If you went through and you click the other ones, we have you down.
All right. Does anybody have any questions about anything, any upcoming trainings? Well, thank you all so much for coming, and thank you, Kurt. Super helpful. And we hope to see everybody in the next few months. Thanks.
Excellent. Hope to see everybody March 2nd. Have a good night. Kurt, if you just want to hang on, I am going to stop the recording and then do more informal goodbyes. But thank you all. You can stay on. If you have other questions after I stop the recording, you are very welcome to stay on as well.